Hi, let's take a look at the confirmation bias. This is one bias which is all pervasive, and all of us have been victims of this bias at some time or the other. The confirmation bias sabotages rational decision making in many ways. It clouds our minds and prevents clear objective thinking. So, what exactly is a confirmation bias? It is a bias that makes us look only for information that fits in with our existing beliefs while outright rejecting or filtering out any information that contradicts them. When we are not able to outright reject the information as false, we are likely to consider it to be an exception, a bad observation, or anything but truthful information. Let's say that I like my colleague X and think he is a very honest, trustworthy, loyal, and truthful human being. You come along and tell me that you knew him in college and later on as well, and that X is a liar who talks behind people's backs and should not be trusted. Thanks to the confirmation bias, my confirmation bias, I will either completely ignore this information you have provided or think that maybe you have some vested interest in me having a bad opinion about X, or maybe I will simply tell you that you are mistaken. Whatever I may do, I will not accept or even consider your statement that X is a liar. If you have participated in any debate on politics, you would have had a good taste of the confirmation bias. Psychologists, as a matter of fact, conducted some experiments to understand this bias. They called for volunteers and divided them into two groups based on their beliefs about capital punishment. The group consisted of 48 members. One of 24 participants supported capital punishment and believed it acted as a deterrent to murder. Group 2, again of 24 participants, was against capital punishment and believed that it was not a deterrent. The experiment had two well-researched and well-written studies commissioned about the effectiveness of the death penalty as a deterrent to crime. One study provided research that demonstrated that capital punishment was effective and acted as a deterrent, while the other study provided evidence that showed that capital punishment was not effective. Each group was given both the studies. The purpose of the study was to see whether the opinions of the participants were not moderated by the study that contradicted the stand on death penalty. That is, whether the supporters of the death penalty moderated their views on the efficacy of the death penalty after reading a well-researched report that showed evidence to the contrary. What actually happened was different. Supporters of the death penalty became stronger proponents of death penalty, while those opposing it also strengthened their own conviction about the death penalty not being an effective deterrent. What seemed to happen is that death penalty supporters used the arguments and evidence in the pro-death penalty study as additional reasons to reinforce their existing beliefs. On the other hand, they discounted or ignored disconfirming evidence that was presented in the study that was against the death penalty. Those against the death penalty acted similarly. They used the study against death penalty to strengthen their existing beliefs while discounting or rejecting the evidence provided by the pro-death penalty study. The confirmation bias was in play. The participants absorbed arguments supporting their beliefs while discounting evidence and arguments to the contrary. So what if you have a confirmation bias? What's a big deal? Fact is, it is a bigger deal than most people consider it to be. To start with, the confirmation bias divides people into divisive groups around many issues. Many social issues are complex and have more than one side to it, with no clear evidence of any side being the right one. The confirmation bias prevents people from looking at different sides of an issue dispassionately and objectively. On controversial social issues, social media channels exploit our confirmation biases and deepen the differences between people on different sides of the issue. These channels use their artificial intelligence engines to understand and predict your preferences, feed you news, stories, and information that confirm to your side of the issue, and completely avoid showing you anything that contradicts your position on the issue. At work, our confirmation biases can blind us to poor performance by smart-looking people. The way this works is that, at first, the halo effect, another cognitive bias, comes into play. The halo effect makes us think that smart-looking people are also smart performers and intelligent people. Excellence in any one aspect of a person casts a halo on all other aspects of the person. So we believe smart-looking people are also good performers thanks to the halo effect. When these people do not perform well, now our confirmation bias kicks in and we are blinded to their performance. The confirmation bias also kicks in with researchers and during decision making. Researchers have been known to look only for evidence confirming their hypothesis. In decision making in organizations, it has been observed that executives look only for evidence that is aligned with their side of the issue. Confirming evidence is paid disproportionate weightage while giving negligible or little weightage to disconfirming evidence. So, is it possible to avoid or mitigate the effects of the confirmation bias? Awareness of the bias is the first level of defense. Being aware should make us provide some space for beliefs which are different from our own. John Hammond, Ralph Keeney, and Howard Raifa in a Harvard Business Review article titled "The Hidden Traps in Decision Making" recommended a few steps to mitigate and counter the distortions resulting from a cognitive bias. Here are some of the recommendations. Always check whether we are examining all evidence with equal vigor. Do not accept confirming evidence without question. Get someone whose opinion you value to play the devil's advocate. Build your counter arguments as well. Evaluate what's the strongest reason to do something else. Be honest with yourself about your motives. Are you just seeking confirming evidence, or are you really wanting to impartially make a good choice? In seeking the advice of others, don't ask leading questions. In closing, here are some suggestions that I would like to offer. If you are having a heated debate on politics, if you are a researcher and looking for evidence, or when you are weighing evidence while making decisions, look out for the confirmation bias. It could be in play, sabotaging rational thinking and decision making.